What's up, guys? Welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about bugging out kids edition. What are the kids going to need in their pack and things to think about when you're bugging out with your kids. Stay tuned. Alright guys, so today we're going to be talking about bugging out with our kids, what their pack should basically look like. And the reason why I say basic is because it depends on the region you live in on what you're going to carry in your pack. So, some items I have on hand, some items we're sold out of, so I'm going to show some items, and then I'm going to talk about some items also. So, first thing I want to talk about, and this is the number one thing that I want people to understand, is what is your skill level of your child and the age of your child? And what do you need to carry to help them along? So if you have a toddler, they're going to carry some little snacks in their backpack, but that's it. You're going to be carrying the bulk of everything that they have. So if they're 5 years old and under, and the reason, I don't know, I just randomly picked the year age 5 because my kids, my twins are 7, and they can do a whole lot more than what they could when they were 4 and 5 years old. So I'm going to talk some things about this is things that they should have in their pack. And even at 4 and 5 and 3 years old, you can teach them these things. But 6, 7 years old, they're really going to grasp a lot of the stuff of, I need to do it this way. So 5 years old and under, understand that they're going to carry very minimal and very basic stuff. About 6 years old and older than that, they can carry a lot more as they progress in age and as they progress in skill. So if they're under the age of 5, understand that they can carry their water bottle, they can carry their security item, and I'll talk more about that. They can carry a few snacks, and they can also use an emergency blanket. Now, if they're infants, toddlers, babies, they're not going to understand any of these things, and they're probably going to be carrying them, and they're going to be riding in something pretty much the whole time. So, just wanted to throw that out there that whenever I'm talking, I'm probably mainly going to be talking about a skill level and their age being a little bit older than 5. So, one of the main things that I want to talk about, and this is something that most people forget about, but you need to think about the psychological stuff that is happening with your child. Now, in my 3 kids, my oldest daughter will adapt very well. She'll be scared for a minute, but then she adapts well. My son will adapt pretty good, but my youngest daughter doesn't do well in high-stress environments. And I have to keep that in mind. So I have to understand what each one's limitations are and what their skill level is. So I know my youngest daughter's limitations is high-stress areas. She freezes up, doesn't do well, she gets nervous. So I know I have to keep her calm. Now, she won't be screaming and freaking out, but she will start crying and get emotional, and it affects what she can and can't do. And I know that, so keep that in the back of your mind. There's a lot of psychological things happening here. You're bugging out. That means you're leaving your home behind. They're leaving their security behind. They're leaving everything they know behind and potentially may not come back to it. So you need to keep that in your mind of the psychological stuff that's happening with each one of your children on their ages and how they deal with things. So remember that as the number one really big key thing is the psychological that's happening with your kids in a bug out situation. They're going to be scared. My kids don't react the way I react to high stress environments. High stress environments, I get very focused and I know everything I need to do. And I will break down later. I don't have time to break down now. I have to make sure everyone's safe. Your kids, on the other hand, may not do that. And if you were hollering and screaming, going, go, 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 and let's do it, da-da-da, your kids might freeze up. So you need to understand how to speak with them to get them motivated and keep everything calm in their mind. Even though it might be the world is burning down outside, you need to make sure they can psychologically process what's happening in a sense. Some things they're not going to be able to, but you need to keep it in the back of your mind that they are freaking out and they need you to be their rock. You and your spouse to be their rock. And you might have to carry one for a little bit, even if they're 5, 6, 7 years old. You might have to pick them up and carry them just because they are scared. So keep that in the back of your mind on when, if you are bugging out, what could possibly be going on in their mind. Now, don't get me wrong, high stress environment, you're having to leave fast. And I talked about it in the last video. If you're having a bug out and everything's really bad behind you, everything should already be packed. All you have to do is grab packs and go. So you need to be prepared in that, but also think about the psychological that's happening with your kids in this environment. All right, let's get on to our next topic. Okay, so building their bug out bag. Now, there's going to be items that are not in their bag and they're going to have to put in their bag. I am very big on leaving room for security items. And I know I'm probably going to get some hate in the comment, but every one of us, when we were growing up, and we've also seen our kids, they have a security item, a security blanket, a security toy, that when the storms happen, when something bad's happening, they get it and they hold it. My youngest daughter has this little cat thing. My other two kids have had blankets or various other things. Leave room in the pack for that security item because, again, psychologically, your child's going to need it. Now, also talking about psychological stuff, you need to carry things with you because if you have to stop and you're having to stay overnight to keep your kids entertained, that's quiet. One of the things that I like carrying and all my kids have in their pack is a pack of playing cards. You can do all kinds of things with that. They can play card games. They can have, they can read the cards if they're old enough to read because there's survival tips on them. I like the ones that have survival tips or some kind of tip or some kind of joke or some kind of something on it. Plain playing cards, I don't like because all it is a playing card. If it has information on it or extra games that they can play, that they can sit quietly and play, it's going to keep them entertained and it's going to keep them quiet. If a kid does not have something to do, they're going to start wandering around, they're going to start making noises, they're going to start asking questions when they need to just be sitting and being quiet. Now, there are things that I would say teach them how to not shuffle, like making loud noises with them, but you can take little things like this or some very small travel board games with you that they can carry in their pack to keep them entertained. Also, and as honest truth, a toy that doesn't make noise like an action figure or a doll, something that's going to help them focus on that and not focus on the bad whenever you are stopping. Because your kids they're going to have a high where, okay, we're moving now, things are good, but then whenever you have to come to a place to where you're camping or having to stay overnight, or you're having to stay in a place for a couple of hours because people are passing by, and yes, they're being quiet, but they're having to sit and be idle, those emotions are going to start coming on them again, and they're going to start getting down in their lows, and you're going to need to give them something to keep their mind occupied. So a book, anything like that, where they're not having to use a flashlight, just understand that, keep light low, but keeping their mind occupied is going to help you out. And playing cards that have pictures on them where they can play matching games or things that can be read to them quietly or anything like that will help their mind stay calm and help them be occupied. So security items and some small games, very important, or small little toys, something in there to keep them occupied. Keep that in mind, very important. And a lot of people don't think of those things because it's like, we got to go, we got to have our gear, you got to have all their kids. You have to look at the child and the age of the child so they know they feel safe. And they can also keep you safe because they're staying quiet, occupied, playing with a little toy where they might be up messing with things in an area that they need to be quiet in. So, next topic. All right, guys, next things to carry in your pack, and this is going to be, again, for your older kids. I don't care what kind of backpack they have. And I should have talked about this at first, but it doesn't matter the pack. It only matters that they're able to carry their stuff in it and it's comfortable. Now, with that, understand that it could be, if it's extremely brightly colored, it'll stand out. But if it has a cartoon character on it, but they enjoy it and they're good with it, then let them carry it. You can hide things easy. One of the things that I recommend is carried is either a dark colored bandana or carry a smog that's big enough to cover it up, and you can just wrap it around the pack if you're in the woods and it can't be seen. I always recommend carrying something that's 100% cotton, so you can use it as a bandage. You can use it for so many uses as a bandana or a smog or something like that. So that in the pack also, I wasn't going to talk about till later, but wanted to bring it up because if you need to make it camo or cover it to where it's hid better, covering it up with a smog or covering them up with a smog or something, because these are really big. I think they're 48 by 48. You can actually cover them up and they can go all hobbit with their little cloak thing, and it covers everything up and it's hid. And it's also going to help keep them warm a little bit. Speaking of that, keeping warm, a light jacket, but a darker colored light jacket. It doesn't depend on the time of year. Now, I will say if it's winter time, a heavy jacket is important. Dress for your environment and dress them for their environment. But this time of year, it is June when I'm doing this video, but a light jacket, because for kids, it's also a security. They can put the jacket on at night if they don't have a sleeping bag or whatever with them, because odds are they're not going to. They can pull the hood over their head and they can feel secure. So, light jacket, it's a good layer of protection. Now, another thing that I recommend being in the pack is a security blanket or survival blanket and a poncho. And I like the survival ponchos because they have the emergency blanket on the inside. I'll show you on the back side. Now, I would try to find one that would be green. We just don't have any in stock right now. But this is going to help keep them protected in the weather. If they get separated, they have the ability to put it on if it starts raining, or they can use it as a temporary shelter. The same goes for an emergency blanket. They can open it up, they can get inside it, they can cover up completely and stay hid. Now again, I prefer darker colors, but this is what we had in stock. So, those go in the pack, they go in their pack, it stays with them. Now, another thing that needs to be in their pack is a way to carry water, and I prefer single-walled stainless steel water bottles, and a way to process water. So, depending on their age, will be what they can carry on their pack. But even if it's a smaller water bottle that's plastic, at least it's a way to carry water. You just teach them to use a water purification straw like this Clean Sip. And with the Clean Sip, they're just able to put the straw in there, drink the water, and it purifies, I think, like 50 gallons of water or something, close to 50 gallons of water in like a 6-month period, if you used it every day. If you want to do the math, it is 5 8-ounce glasses of water daily for up to 4 to 6 months, depending on water clarity. I did the math the other day. I'm not doing it again. So, but having this or a Life Straw or a Sawyer, something like that, even if you just have a basic plastic water bottle, they can refill it and they can drink. But if you do not have a single-walled stainless steel water bottle, and I emphasize single-walled because double-walled will explode if you put it on a fire or heat it, then having a small cup that they can use to eat out of, and carrying a spork or a little camp set of the plastic fork, knife, and spoon so they can eat when y'all stop, and you can put food in the cup and they can eat out of the cup. Giving them a little bit of some kind of normal in a survival situation is really going to help their psychological also. So if y'all always sat down as a family and ate together, and you're able to, and you have your freeze-dried meals and you divide it out, sitting down and eating together in that situation will also help them. Now, if you're not able to, for whatever reason, don't. But it's always going to go back to the psychological of the children that a lot of people don't think about. This situation is going to mess with them. So keeping some normality to like sitting down and eating together that night will help out a lot. And having the ability, again, for them to process water, eat food. That's why I like the small stainless steel cups. They can boil water in them if they need to. So, life straw, clean sip, Sawyer, something to be able to drink water without having to boil it on the go, and having an extra container like a cup to be able to eat out of, and a fork, knife, spoon, or a spork or something to be able to eat with. Again, helps with the psychological, but also is going to help them in the long term of being able to survive a little bit more. All right, next thing. All right, guys, so let's talk about food that your kids would be carrying. Now, my kids, I know what they're able to do. So I'm going to talk about with you and if they got separated from you, okay? If my kids are with me, they are still going to be carrying these items, but they're not going to touch these items unless we have to. But on them, they're going to have foods like beef jerky, crackers, granola bars. Those kind of things are going to be in their pack that they can snack on as we're going. Now, if they get separated from me and they are gone for a 24-hour period, food is a psychological thing. So if your kids know how to heat up boil water and deal with that safely, then I would have them have a freeze-dried meal like this Weizen. Now, I would do it different though. These reseal. They would take their cup and they would put some in it and boil, or put the food in the boiling water. They would put everything in that cup. They wouldn't mix everything up in this bag, so they have multiple meals. If they're not able to boil water, or if they're still on the go but they need food and they're just having to rest for a bit and they need something a little more than snacks, I would use one of these because you can do them cold. This is just the strawberry granola breakfast, but it's going to fill them up. It's not high in protein. It's just a meal. Again, and it's going to taste good. It's going to lift their spirits. They would have both of these in their pack depending on their age. If not, a little extra stuff too. Again, the granola bars, the beef jerkies, the trail mixes, things like that. Now, because I don't want them building a fire, quote unquote fire, I would send them with one of these, which is one of the fold-up multi-fuel stoves with the fuel tabs in it, and they would know how to use it beforehand. So they can boil water and be able to process their food and eat. But also, another thing that I would keep in their pack is like hot chocolate or some kind of like apple cider mix or something like that, to where they can have a nice warm drink to help warm them up also, if they're able to use this. My 7-year-olds can use these. If my kid was like 3 or 4, they couldn't. They would probably be learning how to, they would be having the granola bars. They would have a ton of granola bars, the apple sauces, things like that in their packs. If they got separated, they would know they could eat it. But odds are they're not going to get separated. They're going to be right there on me or my wife one the whole time. But the older kids, things happen. If we had to run, if something happened to where we got separated, they know our next meetup point, or they know we're looking for them. They know they have food to eat. So again, having one of these to where they can heat up water and process stuff and not build a fire to make themselves seen is very handy. So fire making, what do I send in my kids' pack? Now in all of my kids' packs, they have 2 ways to make fire. I am big on having multiple ways to make fire. But my younger ones can't use a Bic lighter yet. My older one can. So she has 3 to 4 ways to make fire. A couple of lighters, matches, and things. So I always do a ferro rod with a whistle. The whistle, teach your kids 3 long bursts. So a little bit longer, but same concept, is the International Universal Distress Call. So with the whistle, very handy. If you don't have them with the whistle, a whistle goes in their pack, attached to them or attached to the pack. So if they get lost, they can blow the whistle. Again, bug out situation, survival situation, you need to teach your kids when or when not to do that. Also, they will have storm-proof matches. Sorry, too high. Because they can strike them even if it's raining, and they can light their fuel tab and they can boil water. Again, it's all about age and skill level. If your kids are not good at anything outdoors, be careful what you put in their pack. They can end up being dangerous, especially with matches. Or don't put a ferro rod in there. Give them a lighter and matches so that they can make fire if they can't use a ferro rod. I like ferro rods because they work all the time, 99% of the time. You can get it to work if something weird happens, and they know how to use them. And again, cotton balls, the fire tabs. I mean, you got all kinds of things you can use as extra ignition sources out there. I use fire plugs in ours that look like little earplugs, and you just pull them apart, fluff them up, and you can strike it with a ferro rod, and that will burn also. Another item that I will keep in their pack, and it is one of those they have to have a fire kind of situation, is one of these little, these are by Fire Guys, but these are little pieces of fat wood with igniters on both ends. But I like because I can take this apart if I need to, and it's fat wood. It will light even when it's wet. You can hit it with a knife and, you know, get some fluff or get some dust off of it and hit it with a ferro rod or a match, and it will instantly start burning, and it will help them build their fire. I like these because it's small and one can make a lot of fires. You can break it apart and use it in multiple fires versus certain things that you have to use in one fire. Again, the fire plugs or the fire cloths, you know, the patches and stuff, all work phenomenal too. I like these because it's a lot of items, a lot of sticks for the money. All right, one other thing I'm going to talk about that goes in my kids' pack, and there's a lot of different things, but the next thing I want to talk about is a notepad. This is a all-weather notepad. It's waterproof with a pencil. The reason why is if my kids can write some things down, they can, if they get separated, they can write stuff down to help them psychologically cope with some stuff. They can draw pictures. There's so much that can be done in any environment because it's all weather. But they can also, like my oldest one, can make notes of, well, we passed by this place and I happened to notice, but you know, we're having to stay quiet. I noticed, however far back, this building looked secure. There was nobody there and it looked like I had some supplies. There's a water source here. There's things that each one can do making notes. Or if we're having to stay quiet and all your kids can write, they can be like, I need to go to the bathroom, and show you, and then you can help take them over to go use the bathroom somewhere. Or they can say, I'm scared, or whatever. They can write, you can pass notes back and forth. Something that I would suggest, and it's something that just so happens my daughter is going to be taking, I would learn sign language. I would have the kids learn sign language, and this is just a side note, but you can talk to each other not having to say anything if you can learn sign language, and you can look at each other, you can use the hand signals, and you can let people know what's happening. Just a kind of added point there. Okay, guys, the next thing I want to talk about is a knife. In a survival situation, a knife is very important. Having a cutting tool is extremely, extremely important. So, the knives that are my two go-to knives, don't get me wrong, there are thousands of knives out there, but for my kids, my number one is Mora Kniv. And I like high vis because you can see it if you drop it. Now, I like these also because there's a clip on it. We're not having to take belts off, we're not having to do anything. They can just clip it on and they have their knife. Now, if your kids are smaller, S-Tech just come out with these, which are a little bit smaller knives. Does have the same clip, and it's just a standard blade. Now, this knife I would probably give to my 7-year-olds. It's smaller and it's easier for them to carry, and they can do just about anything with it. My older kid would have one of these, and I have them too. But it's easy to sharpen, and it's a great knife. Mora Kniv makes amazing knives. I will stand beside them. forever, but for a awesome alternative and they're very budget friendly also. That's another thing that's very important. But another budget friendly knife is this little S-Tech. They're new, but I like it because it has a rubberized handle so it's less slip if they're having to use it. The odds of my kids needing to take their knife out of a sheath during a survival situation, unless they're separated from us or just something weird happens, is very slim. But it is a security thing knowing that they have it on them. But you need to make sure they have it on them. Now, a couple other items to keep in the pack or they keep on their person. And I'm going to try to emphasize which one goes where, okay? Fire making is on their person. I forgot to say that. Water purification and stuff and the food can be in their pack. Their water bottles can be in their pack. Or if, because it'll be easier to carry. But if for some reason you have the ability to have a extra little haversack or something small, like my wife has one of the sling purses that she would probably carry also, I would keep at least my life straw and a small first aid kit in that, which I'm going to get into first aid kits here in a second, but just letting you know. But I would have it in that. Then if they had to dump their pack, they still have gear that their fire making and things like that are in this, not in their main pack. But for the smaller kids, they're not going to be able to carry all that because of the weight, so in their pack. Now, fire making, like at least the ferro rod attached to them somehow, and their knife attached to them somehow. Now, another thing that I want to talk about, and this is something I really like, is survival cordage, because it has fire making material in it. You have the ability to build shelters with it. And a lot of them will have fishing line in them. This particular one comes with hooks and sinkers. They're not going to be fishing while we're bugging out, but it's nice to have just in case. So always keep that little bit of just in case in the back of your head. So paracord or survival cordage of some kind, or bank line, some kind of cordage, not a huge amount. This is 50 foot. I'm sorry, this is 25 foot. I apologize, 25 foot. 25 to 50 feet of a hank of paracord, or a survival bracelet, something to where they have cordage if they need it. Again, we always plan on all of us staying together, but what happens if my daughter is at a friend's house and she's needing to get to us and she can't drive, or we're trying to get to each other? There's things that we got to keep in mind, because if she can't stay there and hunker down until we get there and she has to leave, even though I would hate for that to happen, she needs her stuff to where she can survive for at least a couple days, even if it's only a few hours. So keep that in mind. All right, guys, so the last couple things I want to talk about. First aid. In my kit is going to be a big first aid kit. In my kids' kit is going to be a very basic first aid kit with Band-Aids, a few bandages, wraps, ointments, tweezers, mirrors if they get something in their hand or in their face so they can check something. Very basic. Again, skill level. The other thing is a flashlight. Have a headlamp that has red or green or both in the regular light, so that they're able to see in a dark place and they're not having to hold it in their hands. They have both hands readily available. So those are a couple of the other things. One other thing that I would also have in their pack is a slingshot. Ammo's readily available. They're fairly simple to use with some practice, and they have the ability, if they had to defend themselves or to hunt if they needed to. They're small. You can get some very small ones that do amazing things. So, guys, this is some basic stuff for your kids' pack. Remember, region and time of year is going to play a huge factor. What my kids would carry in Tennessee might not be what my kids can or would carry if they lived in New York. So keep that in mind, but it is some basic items to kind of keep in the back of your mind that my kids need to carry this. And also, guys, again, I reiterate this time and time again, think about the psychological stuff that's happening with your kids so that they do not fall down a deep place of depression or fear. So keep that. And one thing that'll help with both of those is train and teach your kids. I tell this with anything anyone gets. If you're going to start learning bug out, bushcraft, how to shoot a firearm, you train with it before you ever use it. And knowing how to use it long beforehand will help you out in the long run. All right, guys, if you want to get set up and get your kids set up with any survival or bug out items, come by the Knife Shop and Survival Outpost and check it out. Also, we are on Whatnot, so if you have a request on something and we're able to ship it, shoot me a message in the chat or in the comments or in the chat during the Whatnot auction, and we will see if we have it. If we do, we will get it out there to you. So check out the link in the description. It will give you a credit. Guys, have a blessed one and get outside and have an adventure.